Good afternoon, everybody. We are not so many today, but I hope we will have interesting presentations, and they will be recorded so everybody else can listen and see the presentations. So let's start. Today's presentation is by Ian Stimpson and Glenda Jones from Keele University, and they are going to talk about the episodes platform. Please, Ian and Glenda.
Thank you, Savka. So welcome to the second series of the webinars from TCSAH. General theme of this series is induced seismicity. Where are we now? And what challenges do we face? And so we're going to look at some of the issues around the perception and understanding of geophysics, induced seismicity, and perhaps suggest some potential solutions in the form of outreach and teaching activities that we've been piloting here at Keele. So the outline of this particular webinar, firstly, we thought we would start off with just a very quick overview of the alphabet soup, which is EPOS, TCSAH episodes for anybody who's coming to the platform new. We'll then discuss the issues and potential solutions, and then we'll present two use cases. Glenda will talk about some of the outreach work that she's been doing, and I'll talk about a use case from my teaching of undergraduate and postgraduate students here at Keele, and then we'll round up with some resources and a bit of a summary. So to begin at the beginning, EPOS, the European Plate Observing System, this pan-European distributed research infrastructure to ensure the sustainable and universal use and reuse of multidisciplinary solid earth science, data and products, fostering state-of-the-art research and innovation. Hundreds of data and service providers, hundreds of terabytes of integrated data, hundreds of data services, and tens of thousands of unique visitors. And the system is basically split up into the ICS, the integrated core services, the central hub with the main EPOS portal and various user interface APIs, and then a series of thematic core services for things like seismology, volcanology, tsunamis is a new one, satellite data and so forth, and our little corner of EPOS, the Anthropogenic Hazards TCS. So what we're doing is looking at industrial processes that cause earthquakes. That could be mining and quarrying, water reservoir impoundment, either conventional or unconventional hydrocarbons, geothermal, CCS. And we have a series of thematic collections of data sets that we call episodes, and these episodes contain seismic catalogues and waveforms, associated production data and other data, and software analysis tools that allow us to visualize and interact with the data sets themselves. So we have this platform, episodesplatform.eu is the URI, and we have a series of these collections of data and the tools to analyze them. Here I've just filtered them for the various mining projects, and you can see that they're pan-European, and indeed some of the data sets are global in scope. So here's just one of those episodes for the Groningen field in the Netherlands. We have a brief description. We have links to the various data sets, so catalogues of seismic events, links to waveforms, ground motion catalogues, details of the seismic network, satellite data, and then the production data for natural gas from the Groningen field and the locations of where that gas is being extracted, and then links to various visualization tools, and indeed background reading on the area. So that's the background to episodes themselves. And as I mentioned at the start, the broad theme of some of the issues of where we are now and some of the potential solutions and where we would like to go in the future. Really, there is a general public lack of awareness and understanding in its broadest sense of geophysics as a subject and a potential career pathway. And we feel that the earlier that we can introduce the general public to geophysics, to seismicity, understanding that there are careers within geophysical techniques. And indeed, I don't know what it's like in other countries, but certainly within the UK, there is a national shortage of geophysicists to work in industry. And we really need to start early to bring through the next generation of geophysicists. We've then got the whole issue surrounding anthropogenic seismicity. Just first of all, a general lack of awareness of what it is, what potentially causes it, some potentially contentious areas like fracking, but other areas where anthropogenic seismicity is almost completely ignored, such as in water reservoir impoundment. And then we've got, we want to raise awareness of EPOS and the episodes platform itself. EPOS has moved from the initialization phase, where it's all been put together, and we're now at the operational phase level. We now need to bring in new users to the platform, expand its visibility and its use. And that's new users at all levels, from the general public to informed people, to education, and ultimately to researchers. But for somebody coming at the EPOS platform and indeed episodes, it can be somewhat intimidating for new users. There's a steep learning curve. Some of the capabilities, which are really quite sophisticated, are often hidden behind a little bit of jargon, and demystifying and expanding on what is available and walking people through use cases just gives people confidence that they can then go to the platform themselves and go and have a look at some data, play with stuff, visualize some earthquakes, and get a better understanding of what's going on. So our potential solutions that we'll be talking about this afternoon are to develop multiple levels of open outreach and teaching materials at really all levels, starting at primary school level, getting the students to understand that there is this thing called geophysics and you might want to do it as a career, and these are some of the potential issues that you might be working on, and this is why it's all very important to society going forwards, and then developing that through secondary and into tertiary education. So we'll start at the lower end of this spectrum, where Glenda will talk about some of the outreach work that she's been doing.
Good afternoon, everyone. So yes, I'm going to focus on the educational outreach that we've been developing. So funding first. The funding for not only developing but delivering this materials come from a combination of money pots, really. The first one being the personnel time from the EPOS TCS AH promotion and dissemination work package, mixed in with a bit of my academic role time at Keele. So we can see on the right the target audiences for the POS communication strategy, and in blue we've got society. So EPOS obviously has a big value for society in helping to address ongoing global issues, and society here is defined as the public as well as schools. The second money pot that was secured for actually delivering the material developed in person was from the British Geophysical Association. So money from that was for actually going out to schools, visiting schools, and delivering the material that was developed. Next slide, please, Ian. So developing the material actually involved students from both high school and colleges. So over here in the summer, we have a series of work placement students coming to visit the university to see or to get flavour of university life and the role of an academic. So I had about 6 students, 4 from high school studying for their General Certificate of Secondary Education, GCSE, and also a few from colleges studying for their A-level university entrance exams, essentially. And they were tasked with, if you just click the animation, Ian, helping to develop educational online material, potentially again about anthropogenic earthquakes. You'll have to excuse their spelling here. They actually put anthropometric, so not something we actually do any research in at the moment, not that I know of. Had to look that up as well, anthropometric. But yes, they were tasked with helping me develop some educational outreach material that they could understand using terminology and vocabulary that they can understand. So it was decided we would be using the logo graphics from the episodes platform that we can see just on the left here. So there's 8 in total, 6 just represented here. But the students, I asked them to give me their definitions of the different industries that can trigger induced seismicity. So we had a bit of prior learning about what anthropogenic seismicity was and how there's these industries that can trigger earthquakes. And the central sort of game focus was on these different logos and graphics. And their involvement helped me refine the terminology that was used in the outreach material, essentially. The other benefit to their involvement with developing this outreach material was they had to go back to their respective schools and talk about what they just, what they did on their work placement. So it had that ripple effect of essentially growing the audience around induced seismicity and EPOS and the thematic core service for anthropogenic hazards. So essentially, it's content that was developed for the youth of today, but also involved the youth of today. Next slide, please, Ian. So one of the first packages of outreach that was developed was this printable matching game. So you can see at the bottom just 4 of these graphics that are on the episodes platform. Each graphic represents the industry that could potentially trigger or induce earthquakes. And the game is very simple. Essentially, each of these graphics comes with a title and also a definition, but they need to be detached from each other and placed on a table face down for the students, either alone or in groups, to piece them back together correctly. So they have to use the graphics to help them with the definition and the title and essentially piece it all back together, this 24-piece puzzle. So the intended learning objective of this very simple exercise is for the students or anyone involved becoming familiar with the sectors, processes, and technologies that can trigger or induce earthquakes. So this game, any teacher could use this. There's no prior knowledge required. It's also very flexible, so students can do it alone, or they can do it in groups, and they can do it competitively. They can do it over a sort of a time limit. And what helps is obviously having some prizes and incentives in doing the activity. So hands-on activity thrown in with some prizes, typically some TCS AH merchandise, but could be, you know, chocolates or sweets or whatever teachers can provide. Next slide, please, Ian. The other series of material that was developed for educational outreach were practical worksheets. So 3 practicals, one focusing on earthquake strength up to 1 hour, one on anthropogenic seismicity, and one on delving into the episodes platform. So all of the practical worksheets use free online interactive resources that don't require any sign up or registration. They're just good to go. Next slide, please, Ian. So this is a video that I pre-recorded of just the detail within these practical worksheets.
On the earthquakes caused by humans, and it begins with a earthquake strength section up to about an hour, where students are instructed to watch 2 animations provided by Iris that we can see and access via the links provided. Following watching these videos, the students are asked to essentially provide answers for the difference between epicenter and hypocenter, explain why earthquake depth is an important factor for potential surface damage, define earthquake magnitude, define intensity and why it can vary significantly, and familiarise themselves with earthquake intensities by looking at the table below. It ends with the reflect or recap, where the students sort of review their answers and tell us a little bit more on their thoughts on earthquake strength in general and whether they think earthquakes could technically be harmless. The next section focuses in on anthropogenic seismicity, and it utilises the human-induced earthquake database, which we can see here has quite a nice interactive homepage where students can immediately click on the pins to reveal information on magnitudes, years, where they are available, and also download a full spreadsheet on the data within this GUI here. The questions that focus on the HighQuake database are, again, they start off quite simple, asking students who give several examples of anthropogenic activities that can induce or trigger quakes, ranging from both active georesource exploitation and those not associated with active georesource exploitation. They are then asked to sort of interrogate the About Induced Seismicity tab and read that and look at the induction mechanisms. So if we go back, we can see About Induced Seismicity here. There's some nice sort of fundamental basics here around induced seismicity that the students should be reading and retrieving info for answering the questions on the mechanisms. They are then asked to essentially look at some of the previous data that had existed on the HighQuake database in 2017 and presented in this table here, and also from a key publication by the creators of the HighQuake database, who are Wilson et al. And what that is doing is getting them to sort of compare the data from 2017 with the current data on the HighQuake database to look at trends in those anthropogenic activities where there's increases in the prevalence of the data on the site. They also are asked to look at induced earthquakes in the UK and or in their own or home country, and finally recap on the answers from this section. Final section delves into the episodes platform, having sort of given them a bit of a primer on anthropogenic seismicity. And first, again, begins with quite simple questions where they can retrieve answers from the homepage. They're asked to let us know what the episodes platform provides, what episodes are essentially, what applications are, before delving into the episodes platform. So if you have a look at the questions here, that gives them clear instructions to filter under their impacting factor, and then look at wastewater injection and select the Oklahoma episode from that filtering. They're then asked to let us know about the kind of data incorporated in that episode, magnitude ranges, time periods, and utilize the available visualizations within that episode to describe what can be seen, the density of the earthquake events, for example, and magnitudes. They then do sort of similar exercise with a different episode, this time focusing on the Wishen episode associated with the shear project. First question is define what shear is by reading around that episode, and then look again at the data available and the available visualizations within that episode. This serves to essentially get them to compare two different episodes and the range of data provided with those episodes. That's quite important in this case, because with the Wishen episode, there's a wide range of environmental data available on the air quality as well as the water quality that may be lacking from the Oklahoma episode. For example, however, Oklahoma, you've got that wide sort of time range of events that have been captured and much more dense populations of the seismicity. Again, ends with a reflect and recap section to get the students to think a little bit more critically about those differences and the data within the episodes platform. Ends with acknowledgements, references, and also a contact for queries and a glossary on unfamiliar terms and vocabulary.
Okay, brilliant. Next slide, Ian. Okay, so both the printable matching game and those worksheets that we just looked at were delivered in person using funding from the British Geophysical Association at colleges local to Keele University. So that involved Newcastle under Lyme and Stafford colleges, delivering the material to Year 11 Geography and Environmental Science students, with around about 30 students per class. So this was undertaken in October and November in 2022. Since then, I've actually used the material as much as I can and tried to seize as many opportunities to use the matching games, particularly at events engaging local communities, public colleges and schools. So here's just some examples of those. And as you can probably tell, I've utilised the matching game a lot more than the practical worksheets, because the matching game's quite good to just take, if you've got a stand, having those graphics and those definitions, it's colourful, it's good for children, but it's also good for adults, just raising awareness on induced seismicity, particularly these different human activities that can give rise to earthquakes. So some of these events include Science at Night event, which was ran at the Potteries Museum and Art Gallery in November 22. So that was a public event where local universities were asked to participate and hold a stand showing some of the research that had been undertaken at that research institution, sorry. Over 1,000 people attended that, so it was quite a big event, and that matching game was a great thing for people visiting the stand to just get involved and just look at those graphics. So I had families doing it, children with their parents, but also anyone that came to the stand essentially. The matching game's also been used at other events, so United Nations International Women and Girls in Science event, at a British Science Week event, used it quite a lot at science and careers fairs at schools as well as college events, and of course for teaching at Keele University. Next slide, please, Ian. So feedback from delivering both the printable matching game and the series of practical worksheets at the colleges as per the funding from the British Geophysical Association is here. And generally we had quite good positive feedback. Most reported that they had achieved the expected intended learning objectives and were satisfied with the knowledge gained. Some did comment that they could have done with more time, especially with completing those practical worksheets. Others commented that they enjoyed seeing the different graphs, maps, and the interactivity of the online resources used. One student mentioned they would prefer more teaching, as they didn't like having to find their own answers, but there you go. But they did say that the matching activity was useful. And a key takeaway, not just from this feedback form, but from anecdotal evidence and sort of hands up polls of the different classes, was that the majority of students, i.e. over 90%, had not heard of anthropogenic seismicity, induced seismicity, and didn't realise that earthquakes could trigger humans. So if they didn't take anything away from the learning exercise, they at least took away some awareness that this is actually a phenomena to be aware of. Next slide, please, Ian. Oh, it's back to Ian.
Yeah, so I'm going to look at, sorry. Apologies, it's trying to capture me on. Can't turn it off. Right. Okay, so yeah, so my use case is a slightly more advanced level. So this is third year undergraduate and master's students, both studying earth sciences, but also geography and environmental sciences. This is part of a general hazards, geohazards module that we teach. The episode that I've chosen to focus on is a water reservoir impoundment at the Val d'Agri in Italy. I've chosen this firstly because the causing mechanism is relatively simple. Effectively, it's the water level in the lake, and it's also uncontentious. So we don't have to go into the pros and cons of and mechanisms of hydraulic stimulation and fracking. It's a relatively simple concept that pretty much all of these students can understand. So we don't require much technical pre-knowledge, and it's a relatable example to not only earth scientists, but geographers and environmental scientists as well. They can see why it might be important, and they need to understand what's going on. So in a similar form to what Glenda's been talking about, the way that the practical class works is it follows a worksheet, and that worksheet runs through this particular episode. So we start off with an introduction to anthropogenic hazards, human-induced earthquakes, and then look at the various data visualization tools we have available within the episodes, and then learning to use the various inbuilt applications through using the workspace on the episode platform, perform a variety of data processing methods, look to see how the seismicity is characterized, and then once they've had a walkthrough of the episodes platform, we can then set them loose to explore the other episodes on their platform and derive similar or contrasting conclusions from other data sets. So we start off with the simple data visualization. We introduce them to the particular episode on the Val d'Agri water reservoir. We've got a description of what's going on. We've got the links to the various data sets, and below that in the lower left, we've got a link here down to available visualizations, and we've got some of the visualizations here. The overall seismicity map showing the seismicity distribution and the magnitude distribution. We've got about just over a year's worth of data here, and earthquakes up to a magnitude of 2.7. We can then also have a look at one of the other available visualizations, which is the water reservoir visualization. So the solid blue line is the lake level, going between about 10 and 100 meters. Sorry, wrong scale. Going from around 518 meters up to around about 530 meters above sea level. And the bars at the bottom are the number of events in a given week. And we can start to make some just visual correlations between the increase in the water level in the lake and the increase in the number of seismic events that we get. And we can ask some simple questions related to, when and what was the highest water level, when and how high was the highest event rate? Is there a relationship between the two? And can we visualize potentially any time delay between the increase in water in the reservoir and the seismic event rate? We then move on to some of the processing applications within the workspace. So we take the students through how to set up a workspace, how to add various data sets and applications to that workspace, and start off with a simple filtering of the catalogue just to look at the earthquakes above magnitude 2, and indeed visualize the hypercenters in 3 dimensions using the 3D seismicity plot. We can then start to use some of the more advanced application tools to look at things like what is the completeness of the seismic catalogue. So if we look at where the red dashed line deviates from the squares, then we are forecasting that there are small events that we are no longer locating within the network, and using the various statistical properties of the data set, we can estimate that we've got a complete catalogue down to around a magnitude of 0.2 in this particular case. It varies depending on which particular method and confidence level you want to set. There's also an application that can look at the seismicity on a periodic level. So in this case, we can look at the seismicity by month, and we can clearly see that there's an increase in events in the spring through to early summer, and we can then get the students to hypothesize about what may be potentially causing this, possibly the melting of the winter snows, increasing water levels and ground saturation in that time period. Other models that we can process through the various applications, we can look at, as I said, we've only got about a year's worth of data and a maximum magnitude within that year time span of around 2.7. Well, what would be the maximum credible magnitude if we were to look at a period of, say, 10 years? So the top chart would suggest that after 10 years, we have a maximum credible magnitude of around about 4.25. We can look at the data and ask how many magnitude 3 events we might expect to find in the next 10 years. And the estimate from the models within the applications tell us that it's just over 4. And we can also use reservoir seismicity models to forecast, given the particular length of our reservoir, what the maximum magnitude from this situation might be, which in this particular case is potentially up to around magnitude 5.5. And then we can finally go on to some more advanced data processing. We can select various particular events to look at. We can pick the P and S waves using the seismogram picking tools, and we can then use that information to calculate seismic moment tensors, both full moment tensors and best double couple solutions, and then ask the students, well, do these orientations agree or contrast with the patterns of seismicity they've looked at earlier in the 3D hypercentral visualizations. And once we've walked them through one of these episodes, we can then let them loose to find another episode, do similar types of analysis, and write a short report on the nature of the seismicity for the site that they've chosen. So back to Glenda for a summary of where to find stuff and what comes next.
Thanks, Ian. So the educational outreach material, that is the printable matching game, as well as the practical worksheets, can both be found on the TCS AH EPOS website under the resources webpage. It can also be found on the Teach Earth website, which we can see given here on the right. Now, the Teach Earth website houses free teaching materials for educators delivering earth science related content across a wide range of ages, from Key Stage 1, which is basically infant school, all the way down up to Key Stage 5, which is college students aged up to 18 years old. So that is quite a good site to place educational materials for educators in the UK. Next slide, please, Ian. Work in progress. We have a thing link being produced by myself and other colleagues at Keele. And let's press play, yeah, Ian. So it's running at the moment. It's just giving you a quick overview of what's within this thing link. So this is online, interactive, again, free, and as opposed to the other material, this can be done totally standalone. So student, public, anybody wanting to inquire about anthropogenic seismicity can go into this thing link, learn about anthropogenic seismicity, reasons for its importance and growing concern. They can learn about these graphics used on the episode's platform, which highlight the different sectors or industries potentially giving rise to induced or triggered earthquakes. There's information on all of those graphics. As you can see here, CO2 sequestration. They can go back to the home page and inquire about the episodes platform, distribution of induced and triggered earthquakes. They can also look at, once it gets back to the home page, more educational sort of based practical questions on the episodes platform. So this is still being developed and is being designed to be sort of standalone and just a good interactive resource. So this, as well as a blog post, also in the pipeline, with the blog post, again, sort of signposting people to these anthropogenic seismicity educational resources. Next slide, please, Ian. So we've mentioned the TCS-AH website as well as the episodes platform. Obviously, these link into the European Plate Observing System portal and website. And so within that website, we have a TCS-AH dedicated web page with further outreach materials as well. One good resource to signpost people to is this podcast, which is about 15 minutes long, and it's on the anthropogenic hazards linked to geo-resource exploitation. So this was something produced by TCS-AH team members a bit ago in collaboration with ResearchPod, who produce sort of global attention podcasts on science and different subject areas. And a potential idea for the use of this podcast, and something I'm going to be using in academic teaching, is actually getting students to watch or listen to this podcast, take notes, and answer again a set of questions related to what they've heard on this podcast. So within this podcast, the Wishen episode is mentioned, but also more recent research on seismicity that has been observed within the Wishen site. And it's quite a novel and unique case of a fracking-induced event with a 35-month time lag. So it's quite an important one to sort of highlight and utilise in teaching. Next slide, please, Ian. So this quick video just gives us an overview of our Anthropogenic Hazards YouTube channel. So within here, there's a series of videos introducing viewers to EPOS TCS-AH, introducing them to the episodes platform. But there's also quite a few tutorials on here. So they vary in length from sort of short 15-minute tutorials to up to 1.5 to 2-hour tutorials on various functions of the episodes platform. We also have on here the past induced seismicity webinars as well. And this is where this webinar will also be placed as well for people to watch in the future. Next slide, please, Ian. So in summary, Keele, along with the TCS-AH consortium, have been involved in producing a series of outreach and teaching materials to raise awareness not only of geophysics, but anthropogenic seismicity and the episodes platform. So really important. Nationally in the UK, there's a shortage of geophysicists, probably an issue globally as well. So we need to get people and kids and all ages interested in geophysics, seismicity, earthquakes, and this phenomena of anthropogenic seismicity, which anecdotal evidence shows us isn't something that is greatly understood, and also not many people are aware of it, and you know, the fact that humans can give rise to earthquakes. Some of this material obviously focuses a lot on the episodes platform and breaking down those barriers with sort of checking it out. You can be any age and just check it out and see what's available there. So those practical worksheets are designed for just that, getting people to inquire using the episodes platform on the phenomena of anthropogenic seismicity. So key links are the TCS-AH website, obviously the episodes platform, as well as the EPOS EU site, which can give you access to the portal. We're also on social media. We have Twitter, we have Facebook accounts, and more recently, thanks to Ian, we have a Blue Sky account for people that have decided to ditch Twitter. We also have a LinkedIn account and obviously the YouTube channel for the anthropogenic hazards videos. Okay, thanks for listening, everyone. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Thank you.